we used to be able to say, oh, social is not really our channel. I am choosing not to because it's not our channel, blah, blah, blah. But right now it's like, oh, I can't choose to not be in YouTube, to not do webinars, to not, it's almost like you are forced now to do all the things.
I'm Nicole MacLean, and this is Content Matters, created in partnership with Share Your Genius. This show is your digital partner for filtering the trends and focusing on the content that matters most, creating connection that drives results. Let's cut through the marketing chaos together.
I'm Paola Marino. I work at ViB Tech. My role is digital marketing manager. And a little bit about me is I have lived in Colombia, Mexico, and I live in Houston now. My dad is from Bogotá, Colombia, and I was born in Mexico City. And when I was 1 year old, we moved to Colombia. I lived there until I was 9 years old. And then from there, we moved to Mexico. From there, I lived there.
A little boomerang back and forth.
Yeah. And then from there, I ended up being in Mexico for like 15 years. Then on a work trip, I met my now husband. And although I didn't think that was going to last, I went back to Mexico and he chased me down. And now we're here in Talbot, Texas.
I laugh because the first time Paola and I met, this came up and it ended up going with another member. If you are a listener, you know Anna. She's been on the show. But we had this conversation and it turned into a 15-minute meeting on dating and keeping your independence and personality, but also finding the love of your life. And it was just one of those like instant friendship conversations.
And which is so hard because I had to put my career behind for love. And I wouldn't have never thought that would happen. So yeah.
Never say never.
Never say never. Now it happened. And now I'm happy because my career boosted to other places I never thought that was going to be the case. So yeah.
Yeah. Can you maybe on the professional side, like how did that shift or like what doors opened in different ways that you maybe weren't expecting?
Sure. So in Mexico, it's different, right? Just because in Mexico, I've had to work and have my own business at the same time to try to make ends meet, like to pay the bills, basically.
Yeah. That was your agency that you were running as well, right?
So yeah, sure. So I had a social media marketing agency and that was really fun, but at the same time, super stressful. And then at the same time, I had a full-time job and I was also finishing my career, like my marketing bachelor. So,
oh my gosh,
how I wonder a lot of caffeine, I guess, but that was my life. And
cheers
I was just
to the caffeine.
Cheers to the caffeine. But yeah, insane as it sounds, like I just was doing so many things. And then as soon as I came for that specific project to the US and I meet Danny and then I go back and I'm having all these thoughts on what to do with my life. The thought about perhaps leaving everything behind and coming like for love, dropping everything and just chasing love was not in the cards for me when I was younger because it was just very career driven, very, very career driven. Yeah. And so my dad was like, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. And I sold everything.
Wow.
Nicole, and came with 2 bags. And my poor now husband was also really scared because he was like a lot of responsibility at the same time. And so, but like to the career point, on top of that, it was really difficult not to like make it really crazy on that sound like or dramatic, but the career change between being the owner of my own business to coming here and working full time for corporate. And I started off in the hotel industry, hospitality. That was insane because it was like
so different, I'm sure.
So different. And the terms, like pipeline, I was like, what are they talking about? And now
there's a whole other language. I know the other day I was talking to my sister and she was like, I was like, hey, I was just, seeing if we were going to touch base later today. And she's like, I am not a business meeting. Like, why are you using business jargon? I was like, I'm sorry. You just throw it out sometimes. And if you haven't been in it, it's a whole different language.
Like deadline, pipeline. The acronyms. The
The
acronyms
acronyms.
were ROI. And I was like, okay, ROI is implanted in my brain now. Like, but I remember first time I was really struggled was like, how do you prove the value of ROI on social media?
Yeah.
And I was like 25 years old. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is awareness level. Why are you asking me? But on top of it, like the language barrier.
Right.
I was,
Right.
either way.
We'll circle back to the
On that.
to use we'll circle back there and say, how do you show ROI on social? But
So I roll my eyes, but there is a way now, right? But
right.
yeah.
Or some education. Perhaps there's some just verbiage to use to help educate on why we do social media.
And then also like, either way, so to go back to the first question you asked me, like it was a huge difference to work for corporate in the US, in America, right? Like, and so I feel like the major shift was when I started in B2B. Like on top of that, because B2C,
there's a whole extra language and
then
acronyms
B2B.
and expectations too.
Yeah. And like slowly started like focusing way more on digital marketing except just social media or except just marketing full funnel. Like that's where I found that sweet spot when my talent could be exploited because I'm very analytical, strategic, and hands-on. So I think for digital marketing, that's something that you just have to be. And then the mix was great. Like it was just, I was almost like just born to do it. Like, cause it just comes so easy to me. So that's where my journey ended.
If you would have, to your point, found that if you hadn't jumped in personally and trusted that journey, which also unlocked, I mean, I love when people get to say that they found the thing that they were meant to do is so exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into social media a little bit because you said digital marketing. You touch many things. Maybe let's start. I'm curious, like, where do you think social fits in a digital marketing strategy? Because I think sometimes it's like people already think that marketing is kind of fluffy in arts and crafts. And then I think social, they're like, oh, it's just memes and it's just whatever. But it's like, no, there's so much thought and intention to manage, especially a brand. Social account. So how do you think about where social fits in that mix?
I feel like social media falls into the whole funnel. Like it's just everywhere in the step of the journey first. But also, and you know this, social media has become less of like people don't follow companies, they follow people. So how do you integrate social media with your employees, basically, like in a way that it doesn't look fake? And that's so challenging. But I feel like it's a repetitive process. So instead of like, you have a content plan, right? And from there, you just repeat. But when you start creating content to add up the complications of remote work and creation of content on a remote setting for your company is so challenging.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's possible. I mean, we're doing it right now. So it is possible. So, but like, how does it fit in the full picture? It's interesting that you asked about that because social has become a way more important tool for me as a marketer, but for the company I work at for as well. But it still does not represent my top campaigns. Does that make it like, I don't, it's a brand tactic.
Right.
Unless you're able to convince the whole sales team or your whole sales team to share and reshare. And that's so exhausting. So
it is.
I'm not sure. I answered your question, but in a really weird way.
No, I actually like that you brought it to the customer journey and that because to point your customers probably interact with it different than prospects versus even candidates who could work at your company who then could help with demand, later on. There is that thinking about it from that perspective. I've also been thinking about it right now, especially as everyone talks about like the fall of Google, which it's not a fall yet. It is changing, just like it always has. But thinking about owned channels more versus channels where you have less control of where your message goes and how it gets shown and where it gets shown. And in theory, you still have the algorithms that you have to deal with on a LinkedIn, an Instagram, a Facebook, a TikTok. But if you get that follower and that person is interested in you, or you get people to reshare, like that is closer, it feels like, to an owned community than say PPC or even organic. And I've been really leaning into that strategy more for us of saying like, I want more places where we have an owned
Control of
audience
the narrative.
Control of the narrative. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sorry, I talked over you.
No, but yeah, that's not what I was going to say. But controlling the narrative is like, that's actually way more succinct and so much better.
I know, right? But I love it, though. I've never seen it that way. And then on top of it, you get the benefit of also appearing or being able to appear in organic search more in AI, like the overview, the AI overview. And it's just more and more content repeating the same keywords. And so it ends up benefiting you as well because of organic search. So I think like, yeah, the advent of Google is not tangible yet, but with ChatGPT and all generative AI in general, I don't know if you do it in your personal life, but sometimes it's just easier for me to ask ChatGPT than Googling now. And it has become, I mean, in the last year, incredibly different, like the way I used to search for things. And so now that we're there, you kind of know now you have to do all. Like social is not optional now.
Right.
And you also have to create a ton of blogs to rank. It's just a combination of it on top of video, like YouTube.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
And so now you don't have an option. Like legit, this is the thing. I think we used to be able to say, oh, social is not really our channel. And I am choosing not to because it's not our channel, blah, blah, blah. But right now it's like, oh, I can't choose to not be in YouTube, to not like do webinars, to not, it's almost like you are forced now to do all the things. Yes. And yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, but it's becoming more challenging.
And we used to say, you know, people would ask like, okay, so we've been writing content or we're writing X number of blogs a week. Like, what else can we be doing? And it's always been this way that if you have referral traffic from social sites, and that's why backlinking became a thing. And then it got a little weaponized in SEO. So then it became kind of a negative thing to look at if you don't do it in the right way. But we've always been looking for that silver bullet. But the real answer all along, even when it was just Google and not ChatGPT, is you have to be doing multiple channels and showing like genuine authority across all channels. I'm hearing, because in case there are people behind us, there are two adorable little pups behind Paola. And I think Luna is probably playing right now with her toy, which we love.
Luna wants to be part of it. Apologies. But whatever.
Luna's always welcome. I just saw the tail. You guys know I'm not lying. There really is.
I hope you can see it.
Luna. Yes. See, there she is.
So cute, Luna. She's part of all the meetings. She has to. So yeah, so I think like in general, this is a thing. Like we don't have options anymore, even if you're in B2B, because I am in B2B and I don't have a choice anymore. I wish I had, because it is truly overwhelming.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think like being able to be creative and do less, more specific in those channels, like less noise, more thought leadership perhaps, and just be creative as well as how do you use the same content and repurpose it.
Well, and that's where any of the AI tools have presented some challenges or just maybe forcing us to level up our game, but it also is a tool that you can use to better personalize, repurpose, to actually make the content not just let me copy and paste across all social channels, but let me take maybe this really good webinar and then use a ChatGPT or a Perplexity or a Claude to then repurpose it for our LinkedIn audience versus our Meta audience versus a newsletter, and actually show up how you're supposed to on those channels.
Yeah.
So, you know, it presents both a challenge and an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Deadlines looming and you're juggling a million projects? Maybe you've tried outsourcing to an agency before, but how can you be sure that they're going to deliver on your specific goals on time and on budget? Well, look no further than Clutch, the #1 leading marketplace for B2B service providers. Clutch streamlines your search, helping you kick off projects faster so you can focus on what you do best. On Clutch, you can select from over 2,000 unique services and specialties to quickly narrow in on a comprehensive list of the agencies best for your project. Then filter down to a short list of qualified providers through filters, or use Clutch's project brief technology to match you to the best fits. From there, just compare the providers by reading in-depth verified client reviews to learn more about the work that these agencies have done for businesses like yours, so you can make a confident hiring decision. Get matched to the best agencies for your business and request quotes at clutch.co/content matters. You'll be one step closer to having those projects off your never-ending to-do list so you can shift focus back to the big picture. That's clutch.co/content matters.
And now that I think about it, not to go off on a tangent, but
Oh no, we love tangents here.
we do. It's so hard. Maybe there's companies that really do this, but ABM, right? Personalization. Okay. So that's when now not only you have to create content for all of these channels, but also do advertising and perhaps target these accounts, right? And so yesterday I was playing around with some ad copy and I told Gen AI, change this and make it for this sub industry. And I thought, oh my gosh, ABM just became easier because now I can tailor the messaging because it's so smart now that I can quickly create campaigns that in the past seemed really overwhelming, especially with a small team, right? Because it's hard. And so a little bit about that, it's now things that used to seem a little bit not achievable. Now you're able to, because now perhaps you nail one thing and then you just repurpose it and tailor it to not only channels, but also audiences.
Yes. Well, and we could probably get on an even bigger tangent on the right way to prompt and finding different tools, but it really is that prompting skill set that I think is probably it's going to probably be the biggest skill set in the 20s that you could learn to set you up for the future.
Yeah. And experimenting, right, with it and seeing how it pops up. I think in general.
Knowing that you're a small team, how do you find time to experiment? When you have to get a campaign out the door and you have results, but also making sure that you have that time to kind of test and find efficiencies.
Okay. So small team, equal. Not a lot. Small companies, not a lot of red tape, right?
That's true.
So you
what I love about it.
I know, right? And it's so exciting. That's why I love about working at B2B. We literally just get to do a lot of the things and we experiment. And I think there's a lot of, it's not for everybody. I'm just going to say that because the truth is you experiment when it can literally just be a terrible experiment and you lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
And or you can nail it rock it. And so I think that I don't have to find the time to experiment because I'm experimenting all day long because of the nature of the company I work for.
I don't know if you're a Marvel fan, but this is literally when Mark Ruffalo's the Hulk is how do you control blah, blah, blah? And he's, when you get mad, he's I'm angry all the time. That's that was the parallel I just had.
Yes, I love the Hulk. And yes, I am experimenting legit all the time. And I'm running like crazy, hoping, the things work and that maybe I hope I'm staying true to value brand messaging. Oh my gosh. But it's so hard sometimes. And so you sometimes do need bigger teams that can help you make sure you're staying on track. And then second, also analyzing the success or not success of that things, right? If I run an experiment and a campaign and I'm A/B testing and I have all these data, right? And so then it's oh, okay, did I do well? Did I not do well? That's sometimes a problem, right? When you're doing all the things, it's hard to think strategy-wise.
Yeah.
Right?
There is an opportunity cost of
yeah
going from tactical brain to strategy brain. And it's something I don't think we talk enough about, especially when you have to be that player coach or you have to kind of live in both worlds and you don't just live in tactical all day. You don't get to just live in strategy all day. It does you have to, yeah, it is hard. You have to make a mental shift between the two.
Yeah. How do you do it? Any advice?
That's a great question. I don't know that I've ever actually thought about it. I mean, I
Right.
want to say, I mean, I'm terrible at this, so it's a do as I say, not as I do thing. But the time blocking, or one thing I've tried to do, it's been a little challenging with some schedules recently, but this is actually my favorite use case I think I've ever used ChatGPT for. But we had someone going on maternity leave last year, and so we knew we were going to be a slightly leaner team. So across the board, so I took all of our meeting data out of HubSpot, gave it to ChatGPT, and said, when is the most opportune time to run a sales meeting? Both by like who's scheduled, like when it gets scheduled, but then also outcome. So I said, this is a positive outcome. Like what time of day do meetings typically move through pipeline? And then based on that, I adjusted all of our meetings to be not during those times, like all of our internal meetings to not be during that time. And then for whatever reason, which surprised me, Thursday is actually the worst day for us. Like I thought it would be Monday or Friday, but it was actually Thursdays that were just the slowest days naturally. So I blocked our entire team's time for no internal meetings.
Wow.
So Thursday, in theory, is our heads down day across the team. So it's like if you're on sales, that's when you do pipeline and you're maybe thinking more broadly versus like what you have to do in the moment. And then same thing on the marketing side. Ideally, that's either where you can be super heads down and tactical because you're not going in and out of meetings, or if that's when you want to do more brainstorming, creativity, like you can block solid time. And that I think has been helpful.
Time blocking. Simple as that.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay, I may have to do that.
I don't know that that's, I don't always get to take advantage of that as much as the team does, which is totally fair. But I also think it's having good people who can call you on it. Like our CEO is really great at that, of being like, hey, you're jumping too deep into the weeds right now. It's not helpful. Or vice versa. Like, hey, you're thinking way too far. Like we just have to be here right now and stay tactical. So I think if you have good peers that can kind of help call you
stay
on
accountable.
It is good. But now this is what I'll be thinking about for the next like 5 days. Wait, how do you do this?
How do you go from strategy to tactical, and how to not, get too overwhelmed? This is what happens. I feel like I'm an ostrich half of the time. I can't see the problems because my head is in the dirt and I can't see, because I am just too in the wind. And then also, like, I don't know if this happens to you, but because sometimes, like, when the campaigns are yours and you created everything and then you were supposed to judge it, it's hard because you're judging something you created. So it's almost like being judgmental with yourself. So sometimes it's just easy to see things by result. But at the same time, I do it like once a quarter with SEO and social.
Yeah. Which quarterly I think is a good cadence. I did this halfway through last year where I'd been at the company for almost 2 years. And so I took time away. I literally like blocked my calendar and said, I'm going to like a co-working space or whatever for 2 days, and looked at our whole strategy, our website, HubSpot, whatever, and tried the best I could, to your point, to look at it as if I was brand new. Like if I was getting hired and I was coming in and they were saying like, what would you do to improve? And try to look at everything with a fresh set and like let go of, hey, we tried this in Q1 of 2023 when nothing was working and no one was having success. Okay, well, maybe this was still a good campaign. It was just the wrong time to do the campaign. Maybe we want to bring that back.
Bring it back.
Just really challenging myself on things. And that was helpful. But again, you have to like force yourself to really pause to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I love this
conversation. I think me too.
So it's like, I feel like it's ostrich or giraffe. Like sit above, be in the treetops, or like ostrich and like head in the sand, doing the thing.
I feel like I've been an ostrich for the past 3 months. It's okay. I think in general, it's just so valuable. I think I did it last year with our former content marketing manager. She and I went deep 2023, 2024. And we were specifically analyzing display advertising because we did these super cool videos in 2023. Nothing worked.
But it was 2023.
Oh my gosh. What is happening in that year. I hate it. But it was just horrible. Like we didn't see any results and we changed all these ads. Like I swear we had like at least 45 videos and variations of it. And we finally like were able to sit down and see the metrics of all of them and pick the top. And so
Wow.
that's just one channel, right? Like it's insane the amount of data we have right now. Like, and I like, for instance, SEMrush has this new AI reporting tool.
Yeah.
And I've seen a bunch of new AI reporting tools and I get targeted and retargeted with all these tools, but I haven't nailed on one that comprises all my data into one without me having to sit a whole day to build dashboards still. So hopefully one of these days, generative AI gives us that.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming. Yeah. We've put it up. We've put it out into the atmosphere. I mean, I think that's what's missing, especially as marketers. And I think I've probably talked about it on the show, but it is interesting to look at how technology has, I think, affected the trajectory of marketers. And I think when we had such deep social media listening tools and reporting tools, and then the same thing for virtual events and specific webinar platforms that could give you all this data, same thing for email platforms, et cetera, you started seeing people niche into social media, into email, into ads, into et cetera. But then no one was really bringing that all together. And to point of this, the ROI of social media. Okay, well, that social media could be helping your ads, is potentially a retargeting that you don't call retargeting because like people are engaging with it. And then magically when one thing isn't working, you pull it out and then everyone else suffers. And they're like, well, what happened? Well, you stopped investing in social just because it didn't produce a 7x ROI because you're looking for a 7x ROI on every single channel. That's not how it works, really.
Yeah. Again, going back to we don't have an option anymore.
Right.
So this may be, remember, like we had talked about the celebration question. I mean,
Yeah.
pause, right? Like, but at ViB, I'm going to go backwards a little bit. I used to work at a company called Conservice, and we used to do programmatic advertising. It was the first time I stepped my foot into programmatic advertising. I felt so overwhelmed. I'm like, what is this? And it seemed like nobody knew what it was, but we were too afraid to say it.
But it's also a fancy enough word that you can put an extra 50% markup on it. And everyone's like, sure, let's do programmatic.
Yeah, that's right. Right. And then I was like, you know what? I don't deal well with not knowing what it is. And so I'm going to go deep because this marketing agency used to manage it for us. And so every time we would jump in a call, or it was 25 people in the call, I wouldn't, like literally the whole agency. And I would feel very intimidated about asking what it was. And so I was like, if I'm supposedly measuring these people, then why don't I just learn? So I got myself deep into programmatic. And this has been like my past 4 years, getting really deep into programmatic advertising. And now, like, long story short, time passes by. I'm in B2B tech. We are doing some campaign fair. And then last year, we start talking about offering it to our clients. And so this year, I have been part of creating a product offering.
Wow.
Yes. But the cool thing is that back then, I remember when we used to pause these campaigns because I thought nothing is going to happen because, again, I don't think no leads are coming through that. I would see the huge dip into website traffic and it would immediately affect everything else. So then you're screwed because how do you do display advertising? How do you get budget for it? And how do you justify it ROI-wise? And so, that's a celebration. It's still not fully launched, but being part of a product that can solve my pain points is just really cool, know?
Well, it just goes to show, I feel similar every time in past roles when they've been like, hey, I think marketing needs to own the CRM. Like nobody was truly owning the CRM. We had sales. And it was like, well, someone has to do it. And I remember being like, I'm not the best at it. Like, I know how to do emails and like the marketing side, but I was like, I don't know sales or outbound sales or outbound and just business development in general. And they wanted to move it to marketing. I was like, I've never done it. I don't know. But every time I'm like, if I just embraced it faster, it ended up coming to marketing anyways, and I just delayed it. But kind of that, like what you said is Well, nobody knows it. Someone needs to, like, just
Figure it out.
owning those opportunities. And that is part of what I love of like the small teams is if you do that, one, you get to learn so much. And two, there's normally opportunities there.
There is.
You to own
and
that.
I guess that's a great way of seeing that marketers, we end up doing a lot of things and we're part of everything. And it's almost like, I don't know, the other day I was talking to another, it's a marketing company too. And she was telling me like marketing success, like the success in a marketing career is all about popularity. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. Are you willing to say yes and work on a really difficult project and then people approving of it because you jumped in? And in marketing, we have a lot of those opportunities, right?
Yes.
And so I'm not saying you have to do it all and say yes all the time. Boundaries are important, but at the same time, marketing does give you that opportunity of stepping up into the game and exploring other things and experimenting with things. And yeah.
I also think one of probably the biggest skill sets that isn't a direct tactic of marketing, but is leading with influence or learning how to lead with influence. Because marketers are often, we do get pulled in on tactical things like case studies, like sales collateral, like product launches, client referrals, like all these things that live just outside. And you often have that kind of bird's eye view of different departments that maybe sales doesn't have of product or product doesn't have of client success or whatever.
Sure.
And so but you aren't necessarily sitting in a position of official authority necessarily, but if you learn how to influence, how to support kind of that political side, like not bad politics, but the good side of it and learning how to use that influence with where you sit, I think is one of the most talked about and like underappreciated skill set of a good marketer, or at least a marketer that wants to have a leadership role.
I love it. I've never seen it that way. It's almost like, and I've struggled with this, right? In the sense of, and I think all of us have, right? In the sense of, oh, how do I make an impact? I got pulled into this project. How do I lead without leading?
Yes.
And with respecting everybody's role in it. And at the same time, I know a way, but how do I exert authority without being authoritarian? And at the same time, care about people because I'm a yoga teacher on the outside of work. And I'm like, oh, how do I still be empathic? But at the same time, put boundaries because maybe this becomes me and I don't want to fully own this whole project. But as you just said it's kind of like that path of, it's the nature of our role. The nature.
It is. Well, and my background originally was in events. And so I had a very interesting seat because I would travel with sales. I travel with the CEO. Like product people would come to sales, or we'd have client success people come because they were talking to their clients. And so I learned so much just because of the access or just proximity of those people and helping plan things that I think I learned that very early.
I love that. No,
not that I don't know that I learned how to use it well early. I think it took me some at-bats to do it, but I got the view and experience of knowing like if marketing wants to, it can be very strategic, even more so than just within the marketing confounds.
I agree. And there's a lot of room for growth if you want that leadership position, right? Like, which is, I don't think all of us want that sometimes. No. Right? I don't know. When I was younger, I was like really craving there's like big, flashy role.
Babe,
right?
Marketing boss person. Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm like,
now I know what I like. Like, you know what you like doing. And sometimes that can lead to leadership. And sometimes it's just being really good in the spot that you're at.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, a little bit of like growing older. Like, it's also like part of knowing that I'm really like ultimately in the personal level is I'm not really looking for validation. It doesn't matter where I am, right? Like I can end up becoming like CEO of something, but I'm not
starting the next company again.
Yeah. And it's like not an external validation that I'm looking for, but so much more so like just doing my best. And I think doing your best in any position that you're at can lead you to so many places, right?
It can. Thanks for listening to this episode of Content Matters, created in partnership with Share Your Genius. If you like the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. Otherwise, you can find all the resources you need to stay connected with us in the show notes. Till next time.